Hi, y'all. So this is just a quick video to go over the critical thinking assignment. Now, this is one of your required assignments for the semester. And remember, what that means is if you do not complete and submit this assignment, the number of points the assignment is worth, which is 15 points, will be deducted from your final grade. And we don't want to do that because that means that you're going to have to make up those points somewhere else. So instead, go onto Canvas and look at the assignment for the critical thinking assignment. That's using the word assignment a lot. Sorry. All right. So if we look at it, what I want y'all to think about is all of the stuff that we have whenever we think about critical thinking. So what we're doing here is we're putting together all of those skills into this one assignment. We have a series of videos. You can choose from those videos whichever of those topics is most interesting to you. All right. So what you have in each videos sorry, the cat, is a little like short episode of this segment that a specific news personality does. And he does these videos where he's presenting two different sides of an issue. So what you're going to have there are two different arguments, right? You're going to have one argument on one side and one argument on the other side. And remember, when we talk about philosophical arguments, a philosophical argument is a set of statements where you have one conclusion, which is the main point being argued, and that conclusion is supported by one or more premises. Now, remember, premises, that's just a premise is a reason. It's just another word for reason. So what I want y'all to do is I want you to view the initial video. And the initial video segment that I have for y'all to view that tells you why they're doing this is a segment that's called Jon Fortt Tells the Story of His CNBC Segment on the Other Hand. So you're going to look at that video, and after you watch it, you need to answer these questions. Why did they decide to do this? And do you think this is a helpful segment? Like, do you think this is a good idea? Why or why not? So after you answer those questions, you scroll down and you see that in each of these videos, we have both sides of an argument or both sides of an issue presented. So that means, like I said earlier, that there are two main arguments, one argument on each side of the issue. So you're going to choose one of these videos to analyze. We have one that's called Should Amazon and Salesforce Layoffs Matter to Investors? Is ChatGPT a disruptor or a distraction? Should Tim Cook reduce Apple App Store fees? Will NYC's pay transparency rules boost fairness? Is Amazon's sleep tracker dreamy or creepy? And does TikTok's political funding ban matter? So after that, on the assignment, I have the disclaimer, and this is to remind y'all that these videos are only being used for the purpose of learning how to identify and analyze arguments and to improve our critical thinking skills. None of the positions taken in these issues are positions taken by me, by the philosophy department, or by Texas State University. And in this assignment, you are not being graded on your opinions regarding these issues. You're being graded on whether or not you completed the assignment as instructed. So remember, there are 15 total questions y'all need to answer, and be sure you've answered all 15 before you submit the assignment. So we already talked about the first two questions. Now, before you actually watch your video, we have this set of preliminary questions. And the first question is, which video did you choose to analyze? Next, I ask you, why did you choose that video? What drew you to that video? Number 5 asks, excuse me, what is the main issue that's discussed in the video? Then on number 6, this is where we go into the idea of bias and previous knowledge. So remember that when we talked about reading philosophy and understanding philosophy, we said that often we go into a philosophical discussion, or we'll go into a reading, or we'll go into something like that, and we already have some ideas about the topic itself. And everybody has biases. We all do. It's just part of being human. But what we want to do when we're engaging in critical thinking is we want to identify our biases, and we want to be aware of those before we engage with the arguments that are presented, because we need to be able to decipher those differences. Like, this is what I thought before. This is the information being presented. We need to know if we have some kind of bias for or against whatever the issue is before we start considering that issue. Because remember, when we're looking at these philosophical arguments, we want to look at the argument itself and see what kind of quality that argument is, not my impression of the argument based on my bias. So it's really difficult to do that, but that's why we need to identify our biases and our prior knowledge. So on number 6, excuse me, I said, did you go into this assignment with any pre-existing thoughts regarding this issue? If so, how do you think that affects your analysis of the arguments presented? Number 7 asks, did you have any knowledge of this issue before watching the video? What was the source of that knowledge, and how do you think that affects your analysis of the arguments? Sorry, we've been having storms up here, and it's been loud and crazy and rainy and windy, and the electricity is flickering, so I apologize, but that's apparently what's happening. And this is also why the video is up late. So anyway, all right, so think about the knowledge that you have about the issue. Think about the bias that you have. Where did you get your knowledge? How do those things affect the way that you're going to view this issue before you even see the video? And then on number 8, the question is, if you did not have any knowledge of this issue before watching the video, did you have an initial reaction when you chose the video? And what was that reaction? So when you saw the title of the video and that went into your brain, what was your initial reaction regarding that? Now, the next thing I want you to do is I want you to make your argument outlines. So you'll watch the video, and then you're going to outline the 2 different arguments that are presented, and you're going to put them into what we call standard argument form. So we talked about the parts of an argument and how to identify the parts of an argument and how to put them into standard argument form. And if y'all are a little rusty on that, you're going to want to go back and look at the short video that I made over that. And you're going to want to look at the notes that I have posted for you. So what you're going to do is you're going to identify the parts of the argument. And remember, it's usually easier to identify the conclusion first. Next, you're going to identify the premises. After you have identified the parts of the argument, you put it into standard argument form. And that is where you have your premise on the top line, your second premise on the second line, and so on, so that each premise is on a separate line. Under that, you'll draw a line all the way across, and that's where you put your conclusion. And what this does is it separates out each part of the argument so that you're able to analyze it. It just makes it an easier way to analyze the argument for fallacies. So you're going to put both arguments into standard argument form. You're going to do that for number 9. You're going to do that for number 10. The next thing I want you to do is I want you to analyze the arguments. Remember, it's not enough for somebody to present us with a conclusion and the reasons for the conclusion. Did they give you any evidence? Did they give you anything to support those premises? We shouldn't just go along with arguments. We shouldn't just believe them. We shouldn't just be persuaded by them unless we analyze them. And that's what we do next. So after we see our arguments in standard argument form and we think about the things that were presented in the video, we need to ask for number 11, were there any fallacies? Were there any mistakes in the argument? Remember, there are informal fallacies. Those are going to be mistakes within the content of the argument itself. And then there are formal fallacies. And formal fallacies are going to be those problems with the structure of the argument. So were there any fallacies or mistakes in the argument? If so, what are they? Did they commit any factual mistakes? Did they use any informal fallacies? On number 12, you're going to go in and you're going to apply the 3-part test for logical validity to the arguments to see if those arguments are valid, if they have the correct structure, or if they would need more information. If they need more information to be valid, what might that be? If they are valid, are the arguments sound? Can you tell from the information that was presented? So remember that for an argument to be valid, for it to be logically valid, it has to have the proper structure to the argument. An argument is valid if the truth of the premises guarantees the truth of the conclusion. Another way to put that is there's no way for the conclusion to be false if the premises are true. So with a three-part test for logical validity, you look at your argument, you separate out the parts of the argument, and you put it into standard argument form. Then you ask yourself, just for the purpose of determining the validity of the argument, is there any possible way the conclusion can be false if the premises are true? So you pretend like the premises are true, and then ask yourself, if those premises are true, is there any way the conclusion can still be false? If there's no way the conclusion can still be false, that means you have a logically valid argument because the truth of the premises guarantees the truth of the conclusion. If there is still some way the conclusion can be false, then that argument is invalid. Because remember, if the truth of the premises does not guarantee the truth of the conclusion, if there's any way the conclusion can still be false, even if the premises are true, that's an invalid argument. What's a sound argument? Remember that an argument is sound if it is valid, so if it has the proper structure, and if all of the information in the premises is factually correct. And remember, most of the arguments that we come across are not going to be those that we can consider sound because those are properties of deductive arguments. Usually we're dealing with inductive arguments, those where we can usually determine from the premises whether the conclusion is probable. So it may be that you're dealing with inductive arguments here. Hint, hint, you probably are. So why do I ask you to apply the three-part test for logical validity if we're looking at an inductive argument? That's because if you set it up that way and if you do that test, you're going to see where there is missing information and where you can fill in the holes to make your argument stronger. Number 13, I'm asking you, do the arguments have any biases? If so, what were they? Number 14, I ask you, which argument is stronger and why do you think that? And then number 15, I ask you, what can be done to strengthen the weaker argument? Now, I know this was a very, very short, very quick way of going over the things that we learned during the critical thinking unit. So if you have any questions about those things, you can always send me an email and let me know what questions you have. Y'all can email me your work and I can check it over before it's time to turn it in. And remember that we have resources that explain all of these things in greater detail that we have already gone over earlier in the semester. So if you don't remember how to identify the parts of an argument, find that video, find those resources under the modules part or under the files on Canvas. If you don't remember what makes an argument valid and this review of it doesn't do enough to remind you, find that video, find those resources. If you don't remember the three-part test for logical validity, find that video. All right? Again, though, please, please, please send me an email and let me know if y'all have any questions about the assignment or if you need any help with it. Okay, I hope this video helps y'all with this critical thinking assignment. Again, I apologize about it being late, had my technical issues, and then we had crazy, crazy, crazy weather issues. But again, I apologize about that. If you don't have enough time to get this assignment finished and submitted by the due date, which I pushed back 2 days. So if you can't get this done by the end of the day on Sunday, I think that's February 19th, send me an email and let me know, because I know that this resource I intended to have up for you a while ago, and because I didn't, that's on me. So if you need extra time, I totally understand. All right, thank y'all so much. Have a great day. Like I said earlier, if you need any help, please, please, please get in touch with me. All right, see y'all soon. Bye, everybody. Bye, bye, bye.